Hello, all, and welcome to this really interesting session on lessons from Merck's journey from GenAI pilots to production. My name is Nikesh. The host for this session. At Indegene, I look after GenAI solutions for especially focused on the enterprise medical side, right? Medical affairs, clinical, regulatory, PV, etc. Joined in this session today with me is Keyur Brahmbhatt from Merck KGaA. I'd like to, very briefly introduce Keyur to you. Keyur is a seasoned leader in healthcare, most recently serving as the head of data, digital, and IT business partnering for the global reg affairs, R&D quality, and global patient safety at Merck Healthcare R&D. Keyur has led various digital and data initiatives to advance the digital transformation journey. He holds a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences from Naipur Mohali and an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Keyur is passionate about building collaborative teams, solving complex challenges, and harnessing technology for real-world impact. Right? Keyur has over 17 years of global healthcare industry experience and is very hands-on when it comes to operations excellence, learning mindset, and very passionate about using technology, as a force for good in healthcare. So, Keyur, thank you so much for joining us on this call.
Thank you so much, Nikesh, for your kind introduction.
Awesome. So, as we all know, right, that the theme for the Indigen Digital Summit is from chaos to clarity. And this session fits right into that, right? Because over the last 18 months, there has been a lot of buzz about Gen AI, now about agentic AI, a lot of chaos about what to do, what not to do. And through this particular session, what we aim to do is to provide some clarity through the lens of, let's say, what Merck KGaA has been able to do. Some of you might know that in a survey from CB Insights, Merck was amongst the top two pharma companies that was positioned very well from a AI readiness perspective. And I'm sure we will get some good insights from Keyur on how Merck is seeing this entire opportunity. So Keyur, let's kick it off with a question around, how is the Gen AI buzz, settling about into tangible applications in the life sciences industry?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nikesh. And this is a very pertinent topic, actually, and we have seen a lot, since the launch of ChatGPT, November, 30, 2022, there has
Right,
been a great journey. If I have to describe the journey, definitely there is a technology journey and that we are closely keeping watch, but there is also a people journey, actually, the change management journey that has kind of driven, what's happening currently.
right.
Like it happens with any technology, right? It's not something new. That there is always a hype cycle, and I have like a maybe nice infographic there to
Yeah, can
present.
we have the slides up, please?
So what happens is that there is always this hype cycle, and if we can go on to the next slide. So the Gartner hype cycle kind of describes it really well, right? So you have different phases, like you have in a change management as well. The phases when you want to accept, certain change. There is a change or a, technology hype cycle,
Right,
and we started with at the top of the peak, and we have seen the trough almost there, actually there, and now we are moving more towards reality where it's called plateau of productivity. So we are moving in that journey. Agentic AI, probably it's again at the top of the peak currently, but then we will have to see in terms of what would happen. So journey has been quite exciting in terms of where we started and how we have built. There has been a very rapid movement. This is a new phenomena because the first publication was in 2019, actually, for the transformer architecture, and that pivoted the generative AI development. And specifically, this is very important actually for life sciences because we are heavy on knowledge work that we do, and kind of the challenges that we have, it's quite also epitome actually in terms of what we can achieve with this technology. So I believe that technology is going to be a very transformative force in the coming time there.
Yeah, no, absolutely great points, Kiyor. I agree. I think GenAI is something that really shot up very quickly to the peak in terms of the hype. And now we are hearing voices from everywhere saying it's not necessarily delivering the benefits people thought, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, slowly sliding into the trough of disillusionment. So how is Merck seeing this as an opportunity internally?
Yeah, and I think just to kind of the thing that you mentioned, right? It's shot up, like it became one of the historical adopted app, the ChatGPT when it was launched, right?
Yeah.
If we can move on to the next slide, there's a very interesting data that I have picked up. This was published in Harvard Business Review, and this is a series of publications. So the authors, what they did is they evaluated all the use cases that are there across the internet, and they identified, okay, what are the various themes or categories
Mhm.
where people find this generative AI useful. If you see, there is a on the right hand side, the infographic says 2024
Right.
categories, and then you see 2025 categories on the right hand side there. If you see 2024, the biggest use was content creation,
Right.
and the third one, the blue box that you see, the personal productivity and personal use, that was the lowest. Since 2024, the usage has been almost tripled,
Mm, mm.
but the percentage is kind of also flipped. So if you can imagine this, from 17 percentage, the blue box, it went up to the top.
Correct.
And this particular use case is quite interesting for me, because what it shows is the confidence that we put in, because there was a lot of skepticism when the
Mhm.
ChatGPT was launched earlier, or GenAI, when people started reviewing, there were a lot of hallucinations. There were concerns regarding the data privacy, about sharing your personal information. But then if you see, the things are kind of moving more towards building that confidence with that personal use, because if you have to use in the personal use cases, then you will have to share a lot of information about yourself, actually, about
Yeah.
your scenarios and others. So people are doing it actually, so that kind of shows. We can move on to the next slide. What we see is that the multiple application, and it's not just one part of the organization, it's
Right.
throughout the organization. There are multiple possibilities that can be developed, starting with drug discovery, if I talk about the healthcare R&D, till the full commercialization aspects of it actually, and then what can we do, what we picked up the themes actually, in terms of what are the various areas or themes that can be enabled, right? And I would talk about one thing which is very close to my heart, is the content creation, using generative AI. In fact, when there was a very interesting study actually done by OpenAI, and other researchers actually, in terms of what are the key areas, where generative AI would be most powerful application. And they found two major ones. One was
Mhm.
the content creation, and the second was software programming.
Right.
And that really pivoted the opportunity landscape for us. So we see this as opportunity to end, apply, bring the connectivity, and not just think in silo or in isolation, not just creating one use case. Say you create a plain language summary, or say you pick out a global response document, as a standalone application, and just work on that one. We don't see that way. We see this as an opportunity to really relook into our processes from zero ground actually, and then start from scratch and see what it would look like with generative AI, and then think where you can apply, or where you can modify or change, and start thinking on that aspects. Obviously you need to do a lot of pilots on the ground
Mm.
to see how it is working, what are the challenges to understand. But then you need to have that a bird eye view as well, at the in the mind. So that's how we have picked up this opportunity in various areas. This is just one example of content creation, but then it's important to look from a strategic angle
No,
in
absolutely.
what's possible. Yeah.
I think some really great points in terms of you don't look at it just from a use case perspective, and what GenAI can do, but as a holistically, how can we reimagine the process? what are the strategic levers, what are the strategic business imperatives that it can help us solve, and use this more as a medium to impact change. So thank you, Kyor, for mentioning that. You mentioned about pilots as well, and that was going to be my segue to the next question. I'm sure Merck has done a lot of pilots. I'm sure many other pharma companies, I'm not sure, and we know for a fact that many pharma companies have done large number of pilots. But I'm also aware that in many cases, Secure Merck has been able to move from pilots into production. So walk us through some of that journey. What were the learnings from the pilots? How did you decide what to move into production? And what was that journey like?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, and I mean, when GenAI was launched, we were enabled within Merck environment by a platform called MyGPT, and that really pivoted the a lot of opportunities to test the generative power of generative AI actually on
Mm,
ground on certain use cases and how it kind of builds. So initially, we started with four different deliverable types into medical space,
mhm,
and we named this pilot game plan. It's an
mm,
abbreviation called generative AI for medical. It's called the game plan. So we
right.
started with this pilot. We formed a small team and then started evaluating in terms of, okay, what are the possibilities? What are the challenges that are coming up? People are talking about hallucination and other, but do you see that? Is there any way to overcome?
Mm,
And then this internal tool that we had that really helped, for us to test out. We built some optimized work practices with this,
mhm,
and we had also then opportunity to build on our own within the team, low code no code kind of tool that really then helped to showcase the possibilities in terms of what can we do. And
right.
as I was mentioning earlier, right, we had this thinking in terms of the possibility that generative AI can provide in terms of end-to-end content creation opportunities. So that was also in mind. So we worked from bottom up by understanding from a pilot in terms of what is possible, what are the challenges, and what are the best practices that could be evolved, and then also thinking about top down. So if you can move on to the next slide. um, and that was also one of the challenge in terms of how do you manage the bottom up use cases, because there were several people coming out with a lot of ideas,
Mm,
and they were mushrooming everywhere actually, and then trying to organize and sync up the learning was one of the biggest task, or the objective for the game plan, that we wanted to make sure that we sync up the effort that we do
right.
and we learn from each other. So if you see on the right hand side on this slide, right, this is the approach that we kind of adopted, where we had started with bottom up pilots, and then we had some of the organizational strategy or priority. Uh, Important was that how do you then now prioritize when you want to go to scale and when you want to build it, how do you want to like prioritization. And I think that's where the collaboration, Nikesh, I think you remember that we had early on in terms of the value framework,
Yeah.
identifying, okay, how can you build a framework which can then help us organize what is the organizational strategy, and what are the best practices in terms of thinking about the value at the beginning, even before you start working on any projects. So that really helped actually. So the assess and prioritize steps actually, with the proper structured value framework, and then moving and identifying the opportunities. There could be opportunity of thinking like an end-to-end platform, or it could be an individual use cases, in certain cases that we have to build. So we went with the structured approach, to see, how it can then build up
Got
from
it.
a pilot to production grade applications.
Okay. And so in terms of moving from pilot to production, right, any learnings, any things that you would like to share, any best practices you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think a lot actually. In fact, because the technology is moving very fast in this
Mm,
field, right? And what you build or invest, you then kind of end up with that as a starting point always.
right,
And then there is a tendency, for to continue your, sometimes investment in the direction. So that's important to then have the systematic, technology scan that's kind of throughout the journey, not just at the beginning,
right.
but then continue to evaluate, understand how the field is evolving, and then also continue to be ready to have an agile approach and modify your thinking as you go along with
Mm.
that. The if I and that's on the technology part, but then if I have to like see the other aspects of the people part actually as well, right? So we had a lot of enthusiasm in the beginning, when we started with the pilots and other, but the adoption has been a journey actually, so it was not easy as we thought earlier. We had to really work and see, what are the challenges and how it is and how we can then upskill our people at the same time, so that we can ensure that the user adoption, it is appropriately managed. There's one part, right, on the user part, but there's also the creator aspects of it for me.
Mhm.
When it comes to generative AI, how can you like really be the pilot? I mean, people talk about co-pilot, right?
Mm.
So
Right.
for me, it's like pilot, not the passenger,
Right.
attitude. So pilot versus passenger attitude, that's something, it's very important. So how can you move from passenger attitude to pilot attitude, where you are ready to collaborate, not just with other colleagues, but with AI now? And that aspects, I think evolved for us over time actually, and it's still evolving actually. So I'm not saying we are there, but it's still a learning journey has been, there.
Yeah,
So
no, interesting points, right? About the shift in attitude from, hey, okay, I'll come along for the ride as a passenger versus I'm going to kind of drive this for myself or
absolutely.
for my team. Very important. And I think you kind of again segued very nicely to my next question around scale, right? How did adoption happen? What were some of the people elements? Were there certain directions that came from the top that helped, right? So how did you handle adoption at scale, Keyur, for some of the use cases that did move to production?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can move to the next slide. um, Identifying the right opportunity was the key actually, and
Hmm.
within the opportunity also, I mean, and this is the slide which shows like the use cases, that you can prioritize. So the 2 by 2 grid that you see here, right, in terms of the value on the y-axis and the technology complexity on the x-axis.
Right,
So we started with the box on the top left corner, actually, in terms of the high value and low complexity.
right.
And there has been a journey. I mean, there is a tendency usually, otherwise you want to do the cutting edge technology all the time, right? And you want to maybe think about the right side of the box, but then we think that the technology is evolving and it's important to then, scale your, ways of working and the possibilities in appropriate manner. So we started with the top left box, and then we moved then, the right hand side slowly. So that really helped actually, because then that gave us a lot of learning opportunity, understanding, at low investment cost. Um, what has really worked probably is that focus on the quality, and I
Mhm.
think we have started seeing some of the reports, where people are seeing that okay, 95% of the pilots or the projects are not getting the ROI, and it's been a challenge. And the major reason that comes out is that the work slop, basically, it's what's called,
Right.
right? So you have your work that is done by generative AI might not be perfect. So from creator, it's now the pushed to receiver, basically. So entire
Right.
workload is now then pushed from creator, because it makes it easy for the creator. It's created, and the quality it's sometimes not optimized, and then the workload is completely pushed to the reviewer, for example, or say any receiver of the output,
Right.
that kind of that you see there. So that avoiding that part was quite critical, I think, and probably that helped us to have a focus on the quality. So we had an inherent measure of quality when the outputs are generated. And happy
Mhm.
to share that, I mean, the tool that the platform that we built actually called micro creator as a scale up activity, we have seen about out of say 5-star rating, about 4.3 star on all the outcomes that we get. And that has kind of increased the satisfaction. Although there was a flip side on the other side, that it means that we are able to do certain narrow kind of deliverable types or subtypes on the content space, but not like the full scale generalized app. So if you look at like a possibility for generalized app, you can do more, but the quality might get compromised, versus what can you do with the specialized app. It might be narrow a bit, in terms of the use case, but then it kind of gives you more, gain.
Correct. Yeah, I think so. Some of these decisions, very important, right? In terms of how do you ensure that the users establish trust in the system. And I think what you mentioned is absolutely right. Quality becomes a fundamental piece of it, because if the moment a user starts seeing that, hey, I have to redo everything that GenAI is anyway doing, then what's the point, right? Why do I use the system at all? So I think that was key. So no, so thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I
One
think
other
Nikesh,
yeah,
sorry, just to because that's an important point, right? What
yeah,
are you optimizing or augmenting? That
correct,
that becomes quite critical.
correct.
For example, finding information and getting that summary, it's a challenge.
Mm,
That you want to maybe offload that cognitive workload, and you want to keep the strategic decision making, with the owner there. So
mm,
I think it's important to also within that process or use case, what are you exactly augmenting? That becomes quite critical. So
right,
just wanted to add that point here.
right, right. I think you have another interesting. Can you move to the next slide?
Yeah,
And
I think,
yeah,
and this is the kind of, more in terms of the scalability.
right.
So we thought about, building like a platform, this
Mm-hmm,
functionality, and we started with this tool called Myco Creator. We think this as like a Lego blocks. So you
mm-hmm,
have various Lego block functionalities, and then once you build, say, one functionality for the clinical study report, that is then reusable, the same functionality for manuscripts and other deliverable types. It also helps in adoption actually, in terms of because you have one user platform, and then there is one kind of a learning curve one time, but
mm,
not every time, with every app or every, things is changing that way. So that
right.
really helped. And if you can go on to the next slide. So the journey that, from left to right, which I was talking about earlier, right? So we started with a simple, my co-creator 1.0, and then we are now moving towards more and more on the right hand side with more complexity, and as technology is evolving in agentic AI area, the direction is then, supported with the work that we have done so far, is building up onto that one. If you can go on to the next slide. I just wanted to show this very interesting, in terms of what we want to achieve with this, right? So we started with this generalized app, the blue dots, very general app, which you can then be, done some everyday AI kind of activity. But then with my co-creator specialized app, it really helped in terms of scale, in terms of improving quality, and also, making sure that the deliverable types are covered more effectively. And now with the technology updates from moving from left to right, that's what, we are enhancing with the scales actually. So just wanted to share this
No, I think
last
very
infographic. Yeah.
interesting approach and very, I think, pragmatic approach, I would say. If we can take off the slides now, and maybe I'll go to some of the questions coming from the audience. I think one key one is how does Merck think about build versus buy? Right? What does it do internally versus, what does it do, or where does it use partners?
Yeah, and these are very challenging questions actually, right? And sometimes it's not very clear answer, but you need to really think about what is core to your business as a company. What is
Mhm.
core and what is something which is not very essential or strategic. So we believe that, putting together like a simple 2 by 2 grid in terms of, okay, on the y-axis you have all the industry partners, hyperscalers, partner collaborators like Indigene, for example, where their interest is and where their interest is not in terms of building something,
Correct.
versus what is core to Merck and what is not core to Merck. You get easily like 2 by 2 grid. And now wherever you're, it's a very easy answer for us in a way, because then wherever there is no interest outside, but which is core, that's where we kind of, prioritize build. But say where there is interest coincides, between say external partner and what Merck want to do,
Mhm.
that's where it's co-creation or co-build, versus where sometimes there is some things non-essential actually as a company, for us, but then there is a lot of interest outside, that is kind of being driving innovations. That's where, it's a buy option actually, for us. So we try to, sync up and organize in terms of what is happening externally
Mhm.
versus what is core internally actually, and then we can prioritize. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, again, I think the two by two approach seems to be working well in general, and I think really helps in decision making too. I think one other question is coming up is obviously, the world is now starting to move from Gen AI to agentic AI. How does Merck see agents and the role that they might play in the future or even currently?
Yeah, and I think as I was mentioning on the first slide, that it's going under hype cycle in a way, so we need to be careful in terms of what we expect. We need to be realistic, what we expect from this. So if we think strategically and if we find the right rationale, uh, absolutely, we see the potential. Uh, you know, if GenAI has the potential of say building 20 percentage efficiency gain into your processes, I think agentic AI could double or triple that
Hmm.
potential in a way, so absolutely. And it's not just that efficiency gain, Nikesh, for us. It's about the user adoption actually. So we are really, very positive about improving the user adoption using generative AI. So identifying the right area to augment, and then making sure that how it can augment the user adoption, or ease the work, ease the cognitive workload overall for the team that way. So that's
Got it.
that's quite critical. So
Got it. Got
it's
it.
important where do you apply there, and also again the same platform thinking, right? I mean, are you thinking just use case specific, or are you thinking in a platform manner? That's important.
No, no, absolutely. I think we have time to squeeze in one last question, Keyur, and I'll I think when we also speak to a lot of companies, I think one of the challenge is that because the state of the art is changing so rapidly, right? How does a company decide as to when to jump in, when to make that investment, or do we wait for the next wave of or the next state of the art to emerge, right? How have Merck been sort of grappling with that issue?
Yeah, and going back to the basics in terms of really identifying what is the strategic objective, right, and what is the value creation in mind,
Mhm.
that becomes very, very critical. Instead of kind of just aiming for the state of the art. I mean, what are you trying to achieve, and what are the possibilities? Identifying and matching that, that becomes critical. Uh, you don't want to buy strawberries actually in January. You want to wait for the strawberries to kind of have a season, like in April or May.
Right.
That's the approach that we would also prefer. That we want to make sure that it is the right time to kind of go in and then build on it. You can absolutely consider some early pilots and gaining experience, but when it comes to production grade, I think it's absolutely important to see that if technology is ripe enough to be im- deployed, and then think about the full aspects or the holistic digital transformation journey. That okay, what is the impact on your process, what is the impact on people actually, and if the technology is kind of good enough to go into production, and you are ready or not internally.
Correct. No, and you don't want to keep changing. At the same time, you don't want to really be stuck in a paralysis mode, saying that, okay, hey, I'll wait for the next thing to come because the next thing is also going to come after that. So I think that balance, and maybe I'm sure there is a two by two somewhere there that will help make the decision too. No, Kevin, thank you so much. I think this has been a wonderful, session. I hope. I mean, I learned a lot in terms of how pharma organizations, mature organizations, are thinking through their decision-making process, how they are prioritizing their efforts in a very structured and well thought out manner. I hope the audience took away a lot as well. Right? But any other last minute comments, Kev?
No, thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and it's a very important topic actually, and it's a journey, right? I mean, so there's no right answer. I mean, we have also found a lot of things hard way actually, and evolved, and we are still in the journey actually evolving. So, thank you so much for the opportunity to share, and looking forward to learn from other participants in this.
Thank you so much. All right. I think we're,
Good luck.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.